Quick one. Last video hit over 100 comments, which is absolutely mind-blowing for this channel. Let's try that again for this video. Comment down what you think about these stories, or just a hello, and the team will reply. We always reply to the comments. As always, please like and subscribe and help this channel grow. Thank you. I never expected that simply logging into Facebook one evening would turn my world upside down. But there it was, a series of disturbing messages sent by some creep named Brad to nearly all of my Facebook friends, spreading bizarre lies and outrageous rumors about me. My stomach sank as I read each preposterous message, realizing this guy had been stalking me online for who knows how long. Brad sits a few rows behind me in my math class. I've noticed him staring at me a few times, but I never speak to him because something about him gives me an uneasy vibe. But apparently he's been watching me closely enough to dig up the names of my friends and make up wild stories to tell them. The message to my best friend Jen was the first one I saw. Brad told her I'm secretly in love with Mr. Johnson, our dorky middle-aged English teacher. That's obviously 100% false. I don't have feelings for any teachers. The idea is pretty disturbing. But Jen doesn't know me well enough to immediately dismiss such an outrageous claim from a total stranger. I frantically explained to her that Brad is some obsessed weirdo who completely fabricated the entire thing just to mess with me. I assured her I only see Mr. Johnson as an average teacher, nothing more. I just hope she believes me and doesn't think I have some weird crush on this old teacher I barely know. Another longer message went to my church friend Amy, claiming I was caught shoplifting makeup last weekend from the drugstore downtown. This accusation left me fuming. Not only have I never stolen anything in my life, I rarely even wear makeup. The fact that goody two-shoes Amy could ever believe I'd do something so reckless and immoral makes me sick. But I worry she might take Brad's word for it since she doesn't know me as well outside of church. I tried to convince her that I'm nothing like the person Brad described. I've never even thought of taking something without paying. But his lies clearly planted seeds of doubt in her head about who I really am as a person when I'm not at church. The message to my lab partner Lauren hurt the most. Brad told her I've been complaining nonstop about what an annoying snob she is. Lauren can be a bit high maintenance at times, but actually considered us friends and enjoyed working on projects with her. Well, not anymore. After reading Brad's vicious words, Lauren blocked me on all social media. I desperately explained to her that Brad is some insane stalker making up lies about me because he's obsessed with trying to ruin my life. I don't think she's a snob at all, but I'm not sure she'll ever believe me or forgive me. The thought of losing her friendship over Brad's psychological warfare makes me want to scream. Some of the other messages he sent were pure lunacy, telling my baseball buddy Joey I'm obsessed with frogs, and informing my book club friend Lee that I have a bizarre ladybug phobia. These came across as more randomly absurd than actually offensive, but still cast me in a strange light that could make my friends question how well they know the real me versus this wacko Brad version. By the end of the night, my stomach was in knots reading responses from confused friends who weren't sure what to make of Brad or his wild stories. Some seemed suspicious of him, but others clearly had seeds of doubt planted about who I really am as a person. This guy who I barely know has found a way to stealthily infiltrate my circle of friends and jeopardize my most important relationships. Just thinking about having to show my face at school tomorrow makes me nauseous. For now, I'm reporting Brad's account and messaging all my friends to warn them that he is an unhinged cyber stalker spreading lies for his own twisted amusement. I'm praying my genuine friends will ultimately trust my word over some random liars. But the damage is done, and I'll always wonder in the back of my mind whether certain people look at me differently now because of Brad's psychological warfare. One thing is for sure, I'm watching my back from now on, both online and off, because nobody messes with my friendships and gets away with it unscathed. Brad just started a war with the wrong girl. I hope he's ready for what's coming next. I'm not going to take this harassment sitting down. I'll make sure the principal, his parents, and anyone else necessary knows exactly the kind of disturbed stalker Brad is. He chose the wrong person to target with his lies. I'm smarter and more resourceful than he realizes. He wanted to get a rise out of me. Well, congrats, Brad. Now you've got a real fight on your hands. I'm still shaken thinking about all the damage Brad's lies caused within a matter of hours. But the truth always comes out eventually. I have to trust that my genuine friends will see through his deception in time. In the meantime, I'm staying on high alert, both online and in real life. Brad wanted my attention. Well, now he's got it. And I'm not backing down until I get justice. No more looking over my shoulder everywhere I go. It's time to take back control. I'm putting Brad on notice. His stalking days are numbered. I'm taking my life back, starting right now. Game on. I still remember every vivid detail of that tragic night 4 years ago, when I got the earth-shattering call that my best friend Jason had been in a terrible car accident. My heart dropped into my stomach when the officer on the phone informed me solemnly that Jason did not survive the horrific crash. Losing my lively, fun-loving friend so suddenly at only 25 years old completely devastated me to my core. Jason and I had been the closest of friends since meeting in elementary school. We were inseparable all through our formative high school years and on into college as well. I was always the quiet, introverted one, while Jason was the outgoing social butterfly who was friends with everyone. But we just clicked immediately despite our differences. We shared countless laughs over endless inside jokes and supported each other unconditionally through every phase of life. Jason was truly the brother I never had. After getting that unimaginable phone call, the grief was completely overwhelming. I remember mindlessly scrolling through the hundreds of pictures we had taken together over the years, documenting our childhood adventures, high school shenanigans, and college road trips. Seeing his bright, smiling face frozen in time as we grew up together made me miss him more intensely than I ever thought possible. For months after the accident, I found myself frequently picking up my phone by pure habit to text Jason something funny I saw or to get his advice about a problem like I always did multiple times a day. The crushing realization that he was really gone washed over me again every single time. It was an excruciatingly painful adjustment trying to adapt to carrying on with my daily life without my confidant and best buddy by my side. Over the long days, weeks, and months after the accident, I learned to live with a massive hole that losing Jason left in my heart and life. I still reminisced fondly about all our treasured memories often, keeping his spirit alive through stories and photos. But slowly and eventually, the intense grief diminished little by little over the years. I got engaged and married the love of my life, pursued new career goals halfway across the country, and experienced other major life milestones and changes. But through all of life's ups and downs, a part of Jason and our unbreakable lifelong bond stayed nestled deep within me. Given all the time that had passed, last night I was beyond stunned when I received an impossible notification on Facebook while aimlessly scrolling before bed. An unexplainable new message from none other than my late best friend, Jason. I stared mouth agape at the screen, completely transfixed by his name and familiar smiling profile picture next to the message. My heart pounded and hands shook as I opened it. The message simply said, "Bye, friend." Before I could even begin to process the meaning of this mystifying impossibility, Jason's account vanished into thin air right before my eyes. My mind raced uncontrollably. Was I hallucinating in my tired state? Had someone hacked into his account to play a sick prank? None of it seemed real, and yet I knew without a doubt what I had witnessed on the screen. I immediately called our mutual childhood best friend Eric, who grew up with Jason and me like brothers. Eric was just as confused, disturbed, and dumbfounded as I was. We stayed on the phone for hours running through every conceivable explanation. A cruel prank by hackers, a bizarre technical glitch on Facebook's end, or even the wildest theory that Jason had somehow secretly been alive all this time, but nothing added up logically. I barely slept more than a few fitful minutes the entire night as my mind spiraled. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's name and that cryptic message glaring back at me. I kept checking my phone again, thinking maybe the message would reappear or I'd find some tangible hint of explanation for the eerie encounter. But there was simply nothing. It was like he had never made contact at all. Jason's profile seemed to have vanished just as mysteriously as it had momentarily appeared. Today, in the light of day, I am still bewildered, shaken, and overwhelmed with emotion. Part of me feels like I imagined the whole unbelievable interaction in my exhausted, semi-conscious online days. But deep down, I know without question what I saw and experienced was real. As impossible as it seems, merely seeing his name and picture pop up on my screen for a fleeting moment made it feel like Jason was still here with me, if only briefly. Maybe, just maybe, it was his spirit finding a way to reach through the veil and connect one last time to say goodbye to his lifelong best friend. Perhaps it was simply a freak technological fluke, a glitch in the matrix. I may never fully understand or make sense of what happened in that bizarre moment. While I'm still endlessly perplexed over the mysterious message, I do know this. Experiencing that brief contact from the beyond felt like losing my best friend suddenly all over again. But it also powerfully reignited how much our profound friendship and history still means to me, even now when Jason is gone. Whatever that peculiar message was, it instantly unleashed a tidal wave of cherished memories and reminding me how much I miss and wish I could speak to him one more time. Even if it was just a fleeting, unexplained anomaly, it reassured me that the unbreakable soul bond we forged over a lifetime can never be severed, not even by death itself. Wherever Jason's spirit is now, I hope he has found eternal peace and comfort knowing our friendship will always keep his bright light shining in my heart until we meet again. Rest easy, my brother. I was sitting on my couch, catching up on social media and mindlessly scrolling through my Facebook feed. As I double tapped photos and skimmed over posts, a new friend request notification popped up at the top of my screen. I clicked it open, expecting to see an old college buddy or distant relative trying to connect. But when the profile loaded, I froze. Staring back at me was my own face smiling on my Facebook profile picture, the one I had taken in front of the Golden Gate Bridge last summer. I studied the small thumbnail image closely. The hair, clothes, background, all exactly the same as my photo. It was like looking into a digital mirror, an eerie carbon copy. My mind started racing trying to understand what was happening. Had I been hacked? Was this some elaborate prank by a tech-savvy friend? Why would anyone go through the effort of perfectly replicating my profile? An uneasy feeling washed over me. Hands slightly shaking, I slowly clicked the name attached to the impersonating account, Mark Zuckerberg. Now I knew something strange was definitely going on. Still in disbelief, I hesitantly accepted the friend request. The fake profile popped up, looking completely bare at first glance. No other photos, no about me section, no history, just my duplicated profile picture floating alone against a stark white background. I scrolled down cautiously, holding my breath. Near the bottom, I noticed a single post from 2 hours ago. A live video titled Mark's Apartment. I tapped play with trembling fingers. The video quality was grainy, showing a distorted wide view of my living room. I could make out my white leather couch, the glass coffee table, the mounted flat screen, and even recognize the framed constellation map I had on the far wall. But the video wasn't a pre-recorded clip. It was happening right now live. I watched closely, uneasy fascination growing. A shadowy figure moved slowly throughout the room, features completely obscured by the pixelated resolution. But their motions seemed familiar, unsettlingly so. As I sat up and adjusted my position on the couch, the silhouette mirrored my actions exactly. When I set my phone down and scratched my head, I saw the dark shape make the same precise gestures. It was mimicking me, somehow watching everything I did in real time. My chest tightened with panic as my mind raced. How long had this been going on? Days? Weeks? Were there hidden cameras spying on my every move? Was I being watched right now? I felt exposed and paranoid as terrifying possibilities flooded my thoughts. I slammed my laptop shut, jumped up frantically from the couch, and began inspecting every inch of my apartment. I moved paintings, looked behind bookshelves, peered under tables, searching inside vents and crevices for any hidden cameras or microphones. After nearly an hour of hunting, I came up empty-handed. No mysterious wires, lenses, or devices anywhere. But I was still shaken, knowing they had seen me, violated my privacy in my own home. Exhausted, I sank down onto the floor with my back against the wall. My hands were still shaking slightly as I pulled out my phone. I opened Facebook and went to the impersonator's profile, preparing to message them a warning to stop this sick game. But when the page loaded, everything was gone. The live video, the bare profile, my identical picture, all of it vanished. Just a standard "sorry, this page isn't available" message. No sign the account had ever existed. I sat there stunned, more confused than ever. Had this been some twisted prank or display of hacking skills before covering their tracks? As disturbed as I was, at least it seemed to be over now. The video was down, the fake account deleted without a trace. I should feel relieved it was over and that I appeared safe in my home once again. But I couldn't shake the lingering unease of being watched without my consent. The invasion of privacy and vulnerable feelings stayed with me, making me more cautious and alert even within my own space. I found myself double-checking windows and peering around corners as I moved about my apartment. I changed my security settings, made my profile completely private, and avoided sharing personal details online. You just never know who might be lurking right outside your virtual door. I couldn't let my guard down after experiencing such an eerie violation firsthand. Though it was over, the encounter left me feeling exposed and paranoid anytime I was home alone. The idea that some stranger could virtually insert themselves into my living space still haunts me weeks later. I know chances are slim it will happen again. I can't help glancing over my shoulder now and then, half expecting to see a shadow mimicking my movements. But it's just my imagination getting the best of me, playing off lingering memories from that bizarre night. At least, that's what I keep telling myself whenever I feel that familiar, uneasy tingle in the back of my neck. Sitting on my couch browsing Facebook on a quiet Saturday afternoon, I was randomly served one of those, on this day, reminders of a photo from exactly 10 years prior. As soon as the picture popped up on my screen, I felt a rush of nostalgia wash over me. I realized it was an old photo of myself with my college ex-girlfriend, Jessica Morgan. We looked so happy and in love, with our arms wrapped tightly around each other, both of us grinning brightly for the camera. I remembered that time fondly as one of new exploration, freedom, and experiences. Jessica and I had met freshman year of college through mutual friends at a party. We hit it off right away, drawn to each other's similar tastes in music, art, and sense of humor. We soon became nearly inseparable, spending long nights talking, cuddling, and getting to know one another deeply. We both loved exploring the city together, trying hole-in-the-wall restaurants, seeing indie bands play at tiny, grungy music venues, and just enjoying being young. Things moved quickly between us, and we ended up dating steadily for about 2 years. Looking back now, it was an exciting, informative relationship for both of us during our college years. But eventually the honeymoon phase ended, and we realized we wanted very different things out of life. It was an amicable split, and we stayed close for a bit after. But then she moved across the country for a job opportunity. I hadn't heard from her in over 6 years now. Seeing that old photo made me curious what she was up to these days. I clicked through to her Facebook profile and was surprised to see it was still active, figuring she would have deleted it long ago. Her page showed she had moved to sunny Los Angeles and was working as a teacher now. There were lots of new photos of her with friends at trendy restaurants and bars, looking happy and like she was enjoying the California lifestyle. Seeing glimpses into her new life, I suddenly missed her and the closeness we once shared. Before overthinking it too much, I sent her a friend request, thinking maybe she'd also want to catch up after all this time apart. To my surprise, Jessica accepted my friend request literally within minutes. Immediately, a message from her popped up on my screen saying, "Ethan, so great to hear from you after all this time." We exchanged quick pleasantries over Messenger, and I gave her a brief update on my job and life back in our Midwest hometown. She then told me about her move out west to follow her dreams and her teaching career at an elementary school. Our conversation felt comfortable and familiar, like no time had passed at all since our college days together. Over the next couple weeks, Jessica and I continued messaging back and forth, reminiscing fondly about silly memories and inside jokes from our past relationship. But oddly, some of the moments she brought up I had no memory of at all. They were very specific stories. Certain days we had apparently skipped class together, old nicknames we called each other, private conversations I didn't even recognize. When I politely told her I unfortunately didn't remember those things happening, she would just brush it off with a quick, "Oh, don't worry about it." But as the days went on, I started to feel unsettled by the tone of her messages. She began referencing places I had gone recently or things I did without me ever posting about them online. "Looks like you had a fun weekend trip up to the lake." Or, "That new Mexican restaurant downtown you tried last week is pretty good, huh?" At first, I figured they were just harmless coincidences, but it kept happening to the point that it felt like more than just random lucky guesses. Even more troubling, I noticed Jessica's tone changing from friendly nostalgia to resentful and passive-aggressive. She started vaguely accusing me of wronging or mistreating her in our past relationship, citing events and conversations that genuinely never took place. Her messages would say things like, "I can't believe you don't remember how you embarrassed me in front of my friends that night junior year," or, "After everything we shared back then, I'd never thought you could be so cruel and heartless." But I had absolutely zero memory of these supposed situations she described. I tried to kindly explain that I think she was maybe misremembering things from so long ago, but Jessica became defensive, insisting her memories were crystal clear and calling me a liar who was trying to manipulate her. One day she even showed up at my office building unannounced, angrily trying to confront me in person about these perceived slights and betrayals from years prior. It was abundantly clear she had constructed some alternate version of the past in her mind. At that point, I became really concerned for her mental health and knew I needed to permanently remove her from my life again. I promptly went to block her on Facebook, but found her profile had mysteriously disappeared. Figuring she had finally deactivated it herself in a fit of rage, I felt relieved to have her toxic presence gone. But later that night, when I checked Facebook again, I saw a new photo had been mysteriously posted on this day from the previous night. A photo I definitely did not take myself. Zooming in on the image, I could see Jessica's face clearly staring at me from the background, with a disturbingly sinister grin across her face. My heart dropped into my stomach. This was not just some random glitch. She had clearly created a fake account impersonating me to stalk me and insert herself back into my world. I immediately changed my privacy settings to maximum and reported the profile to Facebook. Over the next few days, I kept receiving anomalous messages from unknown accounts. They would say creepy things like, "I'm always here watching you, and you can't escape from me." I was thoroughly freaked out. I ended up shutting down my Facebook profile entirely for a while to prevent her from accessing it. I later heard through old mutual friend that Jessica's mental health had deteriorated over the years and that she had become completely obsessed with our past relationship. She had constructed some fantasy version of me in her mind that did not match reality. I felt sorry for her, but I knew I needed to permanently remove her from my life for my own safety and sanity. It was an unfortunate ending, but an important lesson about letting go of the past and not idolizing failed relationships. Some memories are best left in the recesses of nostalgia rather than dredged back up years later. It was just a regular Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. I was sitting at home in my pajamas, scrolling absent-mindedly through Facebook while some reality show played in the background. I clicked on a new notification and saw it was a message from my best friend, Lucy. We had been friends since we were shy 11-year-olds starting secondary school together. Now, as adults, we were still as close as sisters, telling each other our deepest secrets and dreams. When I opened Lucy's message, my brow furrowed in confusion. "I know what you did," it read. "You can't keep it secret forever." I read the cryptic words over and over, utterly perplexed. What was she talking about? My mind raced as I racked my brain for some shameful secret Lucy could have uncovered, but came up empty. We had always shared everything together since we were young girls, giggling over our first crushes. I quickly clicked on her profile to make sure I had the right Lucy. There was that familiar smile in her profile picture, no indication her account had been hacked. Unease crept down my spine as I typed back a reply. "Lucy, what are you talking about? What secret? I have no idea what you mean." I hit send, my stomach knotted with anxiety as the minutes slowly ticked by. Finally, those ominous dots popped up showing she was responding. But her message only mystified me further. "Don't play dumb. You know what you've been hiding. She's going to find out eventually." My pulse pounded in my ears. None of this sounded at all like my best friend, the girl who knew my soul. My fingers shook slightly as I pleaded with her to explain what was happening. But instead of answers, her replies grew increasingly strange and foreboding, insisting I had some dark secret and urging me to confess. I leaped up from the couch, grabbed my keys, and sped over to Lucy's house. My mind was spinning out of control, imagining what trouble she could be in. When her mom said Lucy hadn't been home all day, my panic only grew. I showed her the messages, and we both agreed someone must have stolen Lucy's phone and was impersonating her. She swore Lucy hadn't been on Facebook for weeks. Over the next few days, the cryptic messages persisted, referencing details about Lucy's life no stranger could know. They described private conversations from our youth, inside jokes only the two of us would understand. It had to be someone close to her, someone who had access to her most personal memories and thoughts. I was frantic, both for my own safety and for Lucy's. Where was she? How had someone infiltrated our secret world? The police were little help, saying there was no evidence a crime had taken place. The online stalker knew just enough to sound like Lucy without crossing a legal line. I felt powerless watching her identity being slowly poisoned by this impersonator. Late at night, alone with my spiraling thoughts, I tormented myself by imagining the danger she could be in. Then one night, a video message appeared. Hand shaking, I clicked play. There was Lucy, bound and gagged, her eyes full of raw terror. The timestamp was from earlier that very day. Bile rose in my throat as I dialed the cops, panic choking my words as I begged them to trace the video and find her. But they found nothing, no location, no fingerprints, only more questions with no answers. In the weeks that followed, I hardly ate or slept, just stared at Lucy's profile page waiting for a clue. I cursed myself for not protecting my most treasured friend. If only I had uncovered the identity of her kidnapper sooner. Consumed by guilt, my mind spun elaborate scenarios of how I failed her. Finally, the police received an anonymous tip about an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town that was being used for suspicious activity. My heart raced with renewed hope as I convinced them to let me join the raid, pleading I had to be there when they found Lucy. As we cleared room after room, I clung to a thin lifeline that this nightmare would finally end. Then I heard it. A faint whimper of my name, so familiar it instantly transported me back to carefree childhood days. I sprinted toward Lucy's voice before the officers could stop me. There she was, tied to a chair just like in the video, her face etched with fear but alive. I wept with relief as I untied the ropes binding her wrists, hugging her desperately. The details after are hazy, but none of that mattered. My best friend was safe. In the months since, our bond has only grown stronger through the trauma. Lucy rarely speaks of that time, but I know the damage runs deeper than she lets on. I wish I could take away those memories forever. She is the sister of my soul, and I'll never take our relationship for granted again. I've learned that life can change in an instant, so you have to appreciate every moment with your loved ones. Though shadows and that fear still lurk, we refuse to let it darken our spirit. The light of our connection shines much brighter. When I first got the friend request on Facebook from Mark Davis, it took me right back to high school. Mark had been the star football player with tousled blonde hair and a grin that made all the girls swoon. I was just 9 out, the shy bookworm who mostly kept to myself. But I always thought Mark was cute in a wholesome boy next door kind of way. I used to blush furiously if we ever bumped into each other in the hallway between classes. When I saw that name pop up out of the blue years later, I felt I was 15 again. Nervous but also a little thrilled at the idea of connecting. I accepted without hesitation. Mark and I started chatting to catch up on the basics of our lives now. I was working at a small advertising agency downtown, while Mark had moved back to our hometown recently for a sales job. He asked thoughtful questions about my hobbies, my typical weekends, my favorite foods. It was nice to feel like someone cared about even the mundane daily details. When I posted silly selfies or cat photos, Mark always had a compliment or witty remark ready in the comments. It gave me a little rush every time I saw his name pop up in my notifications. I couldn't help but feel pulled back into that high school emotion. The butterflies, the giddy smiles whenever he paid me attention. Back then, we'd run in different circles, but maybe this was our chance to get to know each other for real. But then things started to get strange. One day, I posted a photo of my breakfast with the bold-eyed captions starting the day off right. Mark commented below, "Looks delicious." Nothing better than a nice breakfast at that little cafe on the corner. I froze, realizing I hadn't mentioned I was at a cafe at all. Another time, I posted a selfie with a generic Saturday fun, captioned before meeting some old coworkers for bowling. Mark replied, "Have a great time at the bowling alley." Hit a strike for me. My stomach sank reading his oddly specific words. One night, I got a private message that made my blood run cold. "I'm closer than you think." When I demanded to know what he meant, he responded, "At the mall today buying yourself something nice, right?" with a playful wink emoji. Handshaking, I rushed to check my Facebook privacy settings. I was horrified to realize location services had somehow been enabled without my knowledge. How did this happen? I pored over the settings in my memory, trying to figure out when I could have accidentally turned it on. I never post about my location and am always so careful about privacy. I started to feel sick as I realized there was no mistake. I had been hacked. I scrambled to turn location services off immediately, but the private messages from Mark kept coming day after day. He always knew exactly where I was, picking up groceries at Trader Joe's, getting my nails done at my usual salon downtown, out on my daily morning walk through the park near my apartment. One day he even referenced the new lavender nail polish I'd just bought, which I knew I hadn't posted about anywhere. When I finally confronted him with screenshots and accused him of spying on me, he shockingly admitted he'd hacked my Facebook account months ago. He had access to all of my private data, my posts, my location, my private messages. I felt so violated and betrayed. This man now knew my habits, my schedule, little details about places I went that I'd always considered unremarkable and private. He knew when I tended to run errands, the route I walked for exercise, the coffee shops and stores I frequented. I had willingly given him access to the intimate details of my daily life, not realizing the power it would give him. Who knew what else he was capable of doing with that information? I felt exposed and terrified about what he would do next. Deactivating my account felt essential to locking him out for good, Though I knew he'd already invaded my privacy in ways I'd never get back, I filed a report with the police and gave them every single message I'd saved. In the weeks after, I found myself obsessively checking window locks at night and scrutinizing any man who glanced my way on the street. My own home no longer felt safe. I'd given this virtual stranger all the tools to track my real life. Eventually, the paranoia faded into caution as months passed uneventfully. I slowly rebuilt a social media presence, reviewing every possible privacy setting first. I kept things more impersonal now, never mentioning my location or daily schedule. Wary of sharing too much again, I focused on broader topics when posting and carefully evaluated every new friend request. It took time before I started fully trusting people online again. Over a year later, I still feel uneasy about how much power I'd handed over blindly back then. I don't know that I'll ever view social media as harmless entertainment after having my own routine weaponized against me. But I've learned to be more vigilant about my digital privacy. I don't accept just anyone now or assume benign intentions. My information and location stay locked down until I'm certain someone has earned my trust. It's a harsh lesson, but one that I won't soon forget. Virtual actions can have real-world consequences. I'm just grateful I saw the signs before even greater damage could be done. When I first got the friend request on Facebook from Mark Davis, it took me right back to high school. Mark had been the star football player with tousled blonde hair and a grin that made all the girls swoon. I was just 9 out, the shy bookworm who mostly kept to myself. But I'd always thought Mark was cute in a wholesome boy next door kind of way. I used to blush furiously if we ever bumped into each other in the hallway between classes. When I saw that name pop up out of the blue years later, I felt I was 15 again, nervous but also a little thrilled at the idea of connecting. I accepted without hesitation. Mark and I started chatting to catch up on the basics of our lives now. I was working at a small advertising agency downtown, while Mark had moved back to our hometown recently for a sales job. He asked thoughtful questions about my hobbies, my typical weekends, my favorite foods. It was nice to feel like someone cared about even the mundane daily details. When I posted silly selfies or cat photos, Mark always had a compliment or witty remark ready in the comments. It gave me a little rush every time I saw his name pop up in my notifications. I couldn't help but feel pulled back into that high school emotion. The butterflies, the giddy smiles whenever he paid me attention. Back then, we'd run in different circles, but maybe this was our chance to get to know each other for real. But then things started to get strange. One day, I posted a photo of my breakfast smoothie bold-eyed captions starting the day off right. Mark commented below, "Looks delicious." Nothing better than a nice breakfast at that little cafe on the corner. I froze, realizing I hadn't mentioned I was at a cafe at all. Another time, I posted a selfie with a generic Saturday fun caption before meeting some old coworkers for bowling. Mark replied, "Have a great time at the bowling alley." Hit a strike for me. My stomach sank reading his oddly specific words. One night, I got a private message that made my blood run cold. "I'm closer than you think." When I demanded to know what he meant, he responded, "At the mall today buying yourself something nice, right?" with a playful wink emoji. Handshaking, I rushed to check my Facebook privacy settings. I was horrified to realize location services had somehow been enabled without my knowledge. How did this happen? I pored over the settings in my memory, trying to figure out when I could have accidentally turned it on. I never post about my location and am always so careful about privacy. I started to feel sick as I realized there was no mistake. I had been hacked. I scrambled to turn location services off immediately, but the private messages from Mark kept coming day after day. He always knew exactly where I was, picking up groceries at Trader Joe's, getting my nails done at my usual salon downtown, out on my daily morning walk through the park near my apartment. One day he even referenced the new lavender nail polish I'd just bought, which I knew I hadn't posted about anywhere. When I finally confronted him with screenshots and accused him of spying on me, he shockingly admitted he'd hacked my Facebook account months ago. He had access to all of my private data, my posts, my location, my private messages. I felt so violated and betrayed. This man now knew my habits, my schedule, little details about places I went that I'd always considered unremarkable and private. He knew when I tended to run errands, the route I walked for exercise, the coffee shops and stores I frequented. I had willingly given him access to the intimate details of my daily life, not realizing the power it would give him. Who knew what else he was capable of doing with that information? I felt exposed and terrified about what he would do next. Deactivating my account felt essential to locking him out for good. Though I knew he'd already invaded my privacy in ways I'd never get back, I filed a report with the police and gave them every single message I'd saved. In the weeks after, I found myself obsessively checking window locks at night and scrutinizing any man who glanced my way on the street. My own home no longer felt safe. I'd given this virtual stranger all the tools to track my real life. Eventually, the paranoia faded into caution as months passed uneventfully. I slowly rebuilt a social media presence, reviewing every possible privacy setting first. I kept things more impersonal now, never mentioning my location or daily schedule. Wary of sharing too much again, I focused on broader topics when posting and carefully evaluated every new friend request. It took time before I started fully trusting people online again. Over a year later, I still feel uneasy about how much power I'd handed over blindly back then. I don't know that I'll ever view social media as harmless entertainment after having my own routine weaponized against me. But I've learned to be more vigilant about my digital privacy. I don't accept just anyone now or assume benign intentions. My information and location stay locked down until I'm certain someone has earned my trust. It's a harsh lesson, but one that I won't soon forget. Virtual actions can have real-world consequences. I'm just grateful I saw the signs before even greater damage could be done. When the first strange post popped up on my Facebook feed, I blinked in confusion. A short blur about the mediocre cheeseburger I ate for lunch. It seemed oddly mundane and unimportant, not anything I would intentionally post about. I scratched my head, wondering if I had mindlessly posted while multitasking and immediately forgotten about it. These things happen from time to time. I was too busy to give it more than a passing thought. But over the next week, more posts I definitely hadn't written continued appearing. Random musings about the weather. Inane comments on old friends' vacation photos from years ago. Vague looking posts with cryptic messages that didn't sound like me at all. At first, I just deleted them, hoping it was some kind of annoying browser glitch that would resolve itself. But the intrusive posts became more frequent, often multiple times a day, and they were getting increasingly personalized with references to my tastes and schedule that made me bristle. I felt uneasy but was still clinging to rational explanations until alarming posts popped up openly asking my friends for personal information. Their addresses, phone numbers, even locations. They were worded in an urgent manner, claiming I desperately needed the info. I was mortified and scrambled to untag everyone involved, flooding their inboxes with profuse apologies. But the damage was already done. My friends were justifiably upset and confused. I didn't blame them one bit. I had no idea who was behind this was our harassment, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of it fast. My mind immediately jumped to my ex-boyfriend, Ethan. We had dated for 2 rocky years before I finally got the courage to end things for good last winter. The breakup was messy, and Ethan always had jealousy and control issues when we were together. He also took an unhealthy interest in monitoring my social media, constantly wanting to know who I interacted with online. Worst of all, Ethan was great with computers and technology. He could absolutely have the skills to hack my account and manipulate it remotely. I hesitated to point fingers without evidence, but was running out of other reasonable explanations. I started by changing my password, keeping it long and as unpredictable as possible. But the hacking only escalated in response. Suddenly, posts were being sent from my account saying I urgently needed money for an emergency. They spun elaborate stories of financial woes and medical bills, blatantly trying to manipulate my friends. I felt violated seeing my identity being used to take advantage of people I cared about. I reached out to everyone to explain I had been hacked, but the perpetrator always seemed to know my next move, escalating things even further. At this point, I was genuinely terrified by how much personal knowledge they had about me and my relationships. The psychological warfare tactics were entirely customized and could not be random. Someone was clearly trying to intimidate me in a very personalized manner. I finally worked up the nerve to contact Ethan directly, crossing my fingers he would lend his technical skills to get to the bottom of this. I chose to give him the benefit of the doubt and not accuse him outright. Ethan seemed very concerned, even eager to investigate the situation and uncover the truth. Though he had a turbulent past, part of me desperately hoped he was not capable of something this malicious. Against my better judgment, I gave him my password so he could log in and poke around behind the scenes. Over the course of the next week, Ethan explored my account while the hacking spiraled even more out of control. Extremely humiliating private messages and old photos were now being surfaced and posted publicly. deeply personal conversations and pictures that only Ethan could have possibly had access to while we dated. When I confronted him with this damning observation, Ethan still denied any involvement. He seemed shocked and appalled that I would even gingerly suggest he could be responsible. I sternly told Ethan I no longer required his help and immediately changed my password to lock him out once more. But that night, I received the most chilling message yet. "I warned you, Lisa." I frantically tried calling Ethan, only to be informed that his number had been disconnected. In that gut-wrenching moment, it finally became painfully clear that my ex had exploited my trust and compromised my account in the most unforgivable way imaginable. I felt sick realizing someone I had once loved was now clearly trying to humiliate and destroy me. I was completely alone and afraid, faced with the harsh reality that I could not rely on Ethan anymore, if I ever truly could have. But I refused to let him win this twisted game. I deleted my old account and started fresh, tightening every privacy setting to maximum. I gave close friends a heads up in case anything was posted about them next. It took time, but I successfully reclaimed control of my online presence by limiting connections only to those I trusted completely. This traumatic experience fundamentally shattered my innocence when it came to social media and relationships. I was forced to learn difficult lessons about oversharing personal details online and stupidly believing others have pure intentions. Ethan clearly felt entitled to aspects of my life even after our breakup, likely fueled by his unresolved issues with me. I can only hope that someday he realizes his reprehensible actions were completely wrong and rooted in a sense of misplaced ownership lingering from our past relationship. But right now I need to focus on my own healing and rebuilding my personal boundaries against those who try to violate my trust. Though unsettling, this ultimately made me stronger in the long run. It was a sobering reminder that I am the only person who will unconditionally prioritize protecting myself. Staying optimistic about human nature while also exercising wisdom can help safeguard my personal information. My resolve is now steeled, and I refuse to ever let someone else dictate my narrative again. What happened was undeniably a traumatizing violation, but also forced important self-reflection that I will carry with me moving forward. I'm reinventing my online identity, but this time strictly on my own terms. This experience, while horrific, equipped me with the discernment I need to be more cautious without losing compassion. I'm warier now, but still hopeful I can balance protecting myself and believing in basic human goodness. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.